Thank you, everyone, for joining us at Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor's Parson to Parson. This evening is August 15th, Monday evening. This is a monthly program. We're pleased to have Rabbi Barry Silver and Pastor Fritz Aufdencamp for this discussion on current events and religion. And take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here with my favorite heretic, with Pastor Fritz Aufdencamp. I feel like he's a kindred spirit of mine, and we're going to shoot the breeze today about current events, and then we'll open it up to discussion from others and get your point of view. Fritz, what's going on in the world today that catches your attention?
Well, I guess what catches my attention is that I continue to be amazed at how people can see things so differently. Now, as a Christian and knowing how the Gospels originated and the stories that developed about them over some events that could have been that perhaps were very different, I guess I can understand why two people can look at the same thing, and I'm not sure whether they really believe in their hearts that they're different or whether they're just pretending to believe that they're different. But that's the struggle for me today.
I think the answer is very, very simple, and it was summarized by President Trump. If you're referring to what's going on with Mar-a-Lago and the January 6th invasion, et cetera,
yes.
He said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and my followers would go along with that and I would be okay. And he was correct. That explains everything. Anything he does, his brainwashed, deluded followers will accept. He acknowledged it. The sad thing is that there's anybody out there that would actually accept that self-description and say, oh yes, I'm following someone so blindly that if they shoot someone, I will follow them. Normally, if somebody said that about them, they'd be insulted. I guess not. So he told everybody what's going on. He can do anything. He could shoot someone, he could lead an insurrection, he could take top secret documents, he can do anything and they'll follow him. But the thing is that those of us who are not brainwashed, deluded followers, we have the obligation to say, well, we don't follow illegality, immorality, unconstitutionality, and we will protest and stand up and do something about it. But it is very easy to understand.
It's a lot easier for me to understand Donald Trump because I guess I know more about him and his background, but the millions of followers truly have me very confused. As human beings, somehow we are so drawn to power and our own tribe that everything else seems to go by the wayside.
Yeah, but also they've demonized the Democrats and I hesitate to say this in mixed company, the liberals, and they've demonized them so that they have the impression that anything or anyone that could prevent a liberal takeover is worth it, even if he engages in immorality or abuse of women or doing a few things that are a little shady. It doesn't matter because they think that the liberals and the Democrats are going to destroy this country and everything we stand for. Therefore, everything goes in the face of this implacable enemy.
Yeah. It's like with the Crusades. The ends justify the means. We're going to save people, so if we have to kill a bunch of people to do it, I guess that's what we have to do.
Well, in the Crusades, they thought they were fighting for God. Yeah. They thought that they were fighting for God against the godless and the heathen. And the same thing is true today, in that they think God's on their side. And once you think you're fighting for God, then your enemy is fighting against God. And so everything goes. That's why we're in a very dangerous situation today. The sad thing to me is that while we're all sidetracked on all of these things about Mar-a-Lago and insurrections, which are very important, the planet is being destroyed. And what we need is a systematic, unified, galvanized humanity to unite together and to protect our planet. But instead of doing that, we're sidetracked on other issues, and we have an entire political party that's saying that there's no such thing as climate change, or just laughing it off or scoffing and not realizing the threat. The same thing happened prior to World War II. You had Hitler amassing his forces, and some people were saying, this guy's dangerous, we need to protect ourselves. And a bunch of people said, no, no, no. He's just some goofy looking guy with a mustache. He doesn't really possess a threat. We don't need to get involved. The people who said we should not get involved, they had a name for their group. It was called America First. They said, we need to protect America first. Don't worry about Europe. And that is precisely the name that Trump has adopted for his movement, America First. We do not today face a Holocaust against a group of people. Today we face a literal Holocaust of the planet. A Holocaust literally means to burn up in its entirety. And the world is on fire. The forests are burning. And the government actors are fiddling while the forests burn.
Yes.
And it's very much like what happened with Nero. And it's a very sad situation. And that's why I'm glad to have you, Fritz. You speak up about these things. Most people don't bother. What do you think is the cure for all this insanity?
Oh God, the cure. The liberals have been saying it's viewed as a godless society. What gives the right so much power, the Christian right, is that they do view this as a godly cause. And the liberals illustrate a godless society. And so it's so easy to rationalize whatever you try to do to stop this godless society. I heard that on the news again today, interviewing a few people who they bring the word God in this argument. And it's a big religious thing, I suspect. Christians are not expected to spend eternity here. You know, this is simply a stepping off place. So why be so anxious about taking care of this house when we're going to get a better house in just a few years? It's a religious thing.
Yeah, it trivializes this world when you put all your focus on the next one. And the concept of God has been greatly misused. And many crimes and atrocities.
We got to get rid of that concept. We should not be using God in our arguments because God is always on my side. It's ridiculous, but that's the way all the arguments go. We got to leave God out.
I think you're right, Fritz. Anybody else want to weigh in? We got some people listening in. What does everybody else think? We'd love to hear your opinion on what we've said. We hope we said something controversial that somebody disagrees with. So, or if you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear from you. Anybody want to weigh in on the discussion? Anybody want to ask any questions of Pastor Fritz or of me?
Oh, Rabbi Barry, that's right.
All right, Fritz, let me ask you about something else. What's your view? Go to another controversial topic. What's your view on abortion?
Well, my view is very simple, and I've said this before. We've got to get back to letting the mother and the doctor decide what's going to happen. People just seem to trivialize the trauma that women go through when they're pregnant. They take this as such a lighthearted issue, as if they don't struggle with what's going on. And we're afraid they can't make the right decision for whatever. And we claim that somehow we know better. And as you know, I don't know where your lawsuit is now, but to me, this is a big controversial rights of freedom of religion that we've got to somehow tackle, do something about. What is the status of is it going to be, these things take so much time, I'm sure.
Yeah, the cases take a long time. We just added some new plaintiffs and we've added some new attorneys, and we're going to try to get a hearing as soon as we can. But yeah, these cases do tend to go for a while, but we're going to try to expedite it, move it along to a hearing as soon as possible. You know, not many years ago, there was a law passed in Florida called the Women's Right to Know. It was based on what you're saying, Fritz. The law presumed that women were ignorant and didn't know what they were doing, and they needed to be told what to do and given information. And so the state required that they be handed religious propaganda about the fetus before they were allowed to have an abortion. And I went to court and I had it thrown out. So that law never saw the light of day, fortunately. But that law and this one and others are based on a type of arrogance that these men know better than women about what's involved with an abortion, and that their religious views are the only ones that matter. And the religions of everybody else are unfit, inferior, and should not be respected because they have the only monopoly on truth. Everybody else is wrong. But it does all stem back to the belief that they speak for God, and therefore they have the right to impose their view on everybody else.
The concept of God may be one of the most dangerous concepts humans came up with.
Yeah, well, there's a theory that human beings, being primates, are used to being dominated by an alpha male. There was a male head honcho in the group of primates, the gorillas, chimpanzees, the orangutans. They had this alpha male, and the alpha male protected them. And if they were in the good graces of the alpha male, he would divvy up some of the proceeds from the kill onto them and feed them. And if somebody was threatening them, he would protect them. But if they turned their back on the alpha male would attack them. And that's very similar to the description of God in the Torah. If you're loyal to him, he'll protect you and guard you and provide for you. But if you're disloyal, then it's over. So many anthropologists think that the concept of God arose from the alpha male, and also from when we were little kids, we looked up to our dad as our protector. He was all powerful and could protect us from harm. And when we got older, we longed for that sense of security and protection we had in childhood. And so we conceived of a father in the sky who could protect us from everything, including death itself. There are theories such as that.
Early in our history, I think it seemed like it was very necessary to have a concept of God to somehow explain what's going on. And that kind of fits somewhat. But in the 21st century, we don't need that type of a picture anymore. We matured beyond that, and we know so much more about the universe and the operation of the universe that the God concept is not as necessary as perhaps it was thousands of years ago.
Well, what do you think we should do about that, Fritz? Should we just discard it and toss the concept in the garbage, or should we replace it with something else, or let it evolve? What should we do?
I think we need to simply accept the fact that there is some force, some energy that supports this universe, and don't go beyond that. Don't try to describe or comprehend or understand the intricacies of whatever this force is and put it in human terms. We've got to let go of the human part of what we do with God. We've got to, as who was it said, let God be God. And we have a problem doing that.
Well, God knows that would be a good idea. But let me share with you a quotation from Thomas Jefferson. He said, "He who knows nothing is closer to the truth than he who believes error." Yes. And that's a very good scientific principle. The scientists get rid of all the preconceived notions that don't have any support in the evidence. And then they start looking at the evidence and follow that where it leads. And so that's probably a good way of approaching God. I don't think it's a good idea to toss out the baby with the holy water. I don't think it's a good idea to discard the concept of God. I believe that our ancestors understood there was something wondrous and miraculous and awesome in the world, a creative power that generated life and sustained it. I think we should continue and embrace and seek to understand that power. But I agree with you, Fritz. All these preconceived notions about describing God as liking one group over another, or writing certain books, or talking to certain people, get rid of that, and let's just start with what we know. There's a creative power that took us from a cell to 100 trillion of them, took a singularity and made a universe. So there's a creative power, we know that. What's the best way to understand that creative power that some call God, it was stated by Maimonides, the icon of Orthodox Judaism. Maimonides said, if you want to know the heart of God, study science. Because science and the universe is how this creative power manifests itself. And so that's why I believe the two go hand in hand.
Suppose
religion and science both support one another.
In our religious discussions with different religions, what if we decided we can have these conversations, but we're going to leave out any ideas about what God thinks or what God does or what God is? What if we would remove those from our discussions? And I wonder if we could make more progress.
Well, what if we remove the anthropomorphic concept of God? In other words, that creative power, instead of investing it with human qualities, he gets angry. If we thwart him, he's going to come back and punish us. He needs to be praised all the time. He has these emotions towards us. What if we got rid of all of that and did what scientists do and start over? We would be left with a profound, awesome, wondrous power that permeates this universe and permeates us, a power that's in all, that joins and unites all and transcends all, and a power that constantly transforms what is into what could be. And if we were able to tap into that power and channel it through religion, which seeks not only what could be, but what should be, then perhaps we're on our way towards a modern understanding of God, and an understanding that could actually help us create a better world and build bridges of understanding rather than walls of separation.
We don't seem to believe.
Would you ascribe to that, Pastor Fritz?
Absolutely. We seem to ignore that Old Testament passage about that passes all human understanding. If we could just be in awe of whatever this energy is and not try to give it a human understanding beyond appreciating the allness of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to just share with you before we conclude, because I think we've had a pretty good discussion about this concept. And if anybody wants to join in, you're welcome to do so. The Hebrew word that described our attitude towards God is yirah. And yirah, originally, the literal meaning of it meant fear. People saw lightning and thunder and earthquakes and disease and famine, and they were scared. And they thought that this power of the universe is scary and angry. So they made sacrifices to try to appease it. Yirah, which means fear, evolved over time to mean reverence. It's not just fear, it's reverence. It's like if you saw a raging forest fire, you'd be afraid, but you'd also look with reverence at the power. And that is the attitude that many modern Jews have towards this creative power. It's one of awe and reverence. And I think if we allow the concept of God to evolve, as this word yirah has evolved from fear to reverence, I think that would help us a lot. It's similar to the evolution of the word mitzvah. A mitzvah literally means a commandment, and Jews obeyed God and did his commandments. But later in history, mitzvah came to mean something different. It came to mean a good deed. It was something that we did not out of fear because we were commanded to do it. It was something that we did because we wanted to do it. As religion matured, so the word evolved, and a mitzvah is now a good deed. So I think we've come full circle, and that might be a good way to approach God as well, through reverence.
We as Christians have not let that word fear evolve. We've maintained it. In fact, I've heard a term recently used because of the way the FBI has been spoken of on the media with some dangerous people. And the term is psychological terrorism. And that's what we've done with this concept of hell. We've continued this psychological terrorism for people who are different from ourselves. And we maintain this whole concept of interfere with this place called hell. With that, we got to get rid of it. It just doesn't fit with the modern world at all. There was a time perhaps when people needed some way of people getting even with other people in the hereafter, but I think we've grown past that.
Pastor Fritz, thank you very much. You are a breath of fresh air. Always a pleasure to speak with you. I thank everybody for tuning in and joining with us this evening. Just want to share with you, we have high holidays coming up at Santa Lucis High School and Lantana. We have Shabbat celebrations on Friday night at 7:30. Right now we're at the Mariposa. We'll be going to the Carlisle. And everybody's welcome to join us. And you don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe anything. If you believe that together humanity can make this world a better place, you're welcome to join us. I thank you, Fritz. Thank you, everybody. I thank you, Sharon, for allowing this wonderful discussion.
Okay.
And Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.